New from ESCO Institute. This is what people are saying about the ESCO EPA Section 608 online interactive course.
Great presentation and understanding of materials. The clarity of topics are consistent, which helps the learning process immensely.
The flashcards, along with the excellent graphics and clear instructions, are fantastic.
I took the 608 core test before I came here and got 45%. After taking the ESCO course, I passed with 85%.
Do you need to get 608 certified? You will find the ESCO EPA Section 608 interactive course on the HVACR Learning Network. The HVACR industry's leading source of online and digital content. Visit us at hvacr.elearn.network.
All right, everyone, thank you for joining us once again on Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC show. So I'm going to pre-apologize for any audio, video issues we have. You know, we did the 100th episode last week, and it wasn't until like a few minutes in, Ty says, Cliff, I think you got the wrong audio. And I'm looking at my computer saying, no, you got the right one. Well, you know, if any of you were here last week, you realize that it was not the right audio. And I know it's not horrible, but we always try to do our best to bring you the highest quality presentation, the highest quality content, and the highest caliber of educators in the industry. So today we're going to be hanging out with Lou Vendrell from Universal Technical Institute. Lou, how are you doing, sir?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. And Ty's going to be joining us here because we're going to be talking about a very, very important topic when it comes to designing the classroom, right? So last week, we worked with a variety of different aspects from the industry. We had an equipment manufacturer, we had an equipment distributor, we had a contractor, as well as a UA organization to talk about partnerships and ways to build our program with support from the community and support from local contractors and manufacturers. So now we're going to dive a little bit deeper when we get into how do we actually set up our programs? Because many of us have worked with some antiquated programs in the past. I know I have. How about you, Ty?
Many times, more than should have happened for sure.
You know, there's things that just need a little bit of updated. But if you think about, Lou, if we look back at the history of HVAC, we didn't really change a whole lot over, probably 50 years. And so some of the technologies we had served their purpose, but that is all starting to change. And definitely, everyone, let us know where you're joining in from. I am just outside of Indianapolis in Brownsburg, Indiana. George, thank you for joining us in Western Kentucky. Ty, I know you're down in Texas. How is
San Angelo, Texas? And we had a cold front come through. It's been in the 90s, about 95 lately, so it's been amazing. Any colder, I have to get my jacket out.
Absolutely. Lou, where are you joining us from?
Well, we are calling out from sunny Florida. Orlando, Florida is home for us.
Ooh, nice. Fantastic. Now, Lou has been traveling the country setting up programs. Now, if there is any person in the industry that has the experience with starting programs from scratch and building them, or taking existing programs and developing them into completely new programs, Lou's the man. All right. So
thanks, Cliff.
So Lou, tell us what you're doing right now. Before we get into the presentation, let everyone know exactly what you're doing in the industry, just so they have an understanding of where we're starting from here.
Sure. So a little bit about me, just 20 plus years in the industry, skilled trades, originally an HVAC student graduate from a trade school. Very proud of that. Mm-hmm. Went out into the industry, worked, became an instructor, and eventually worked my way into education. So what I've done and somehow worked my way into this niche was able to develop new programs and just got a good knack for it, and picking out kind of what's antiquated, what needs to be upgraded, and building programs in really small spaces to building programs in really large spaces. And so we just got really good at it, and it's been quite a ride over the last 20 years.
Exactly. And that's really what we're going to be talking about is, what does that look like? Where do you start? Whether I have an existing program or I am redeveloping a program that may have been idle for a while. 'Cause we've had a lot of that. We've had a lot of programs that have been reaching out going, "Hey, we used to have an HVAC program and it kind of fizzled out. The instructor retired and didn't do anything for a while. Now we're wanting to re-implement our programs, but we need to know where to actually begin." And that's really kind of the heart of things. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to move over real quick, and we're going to have some slides, but we're also going to do some photos along the way. We want you to ask questions and participate in this because we're going to see a lot of changes in our industry in a very short period of time. Howard and I just got off from a 2-hour meeting with the US Department of Energy talking about transitions that are happening, and we all see them from the refrigerant transitions as well as the equipment transitions. But we're going to see a lot of high performance heat pumps moving into the industry. And we are already seeing our low GWP refrigerants R32 and R454B hitting our local distributors, which means our technicians moving into the industry are going to see a transitional industry. And so we want to make sure that we're preparing them for that. So, Lou, I'm going to start handing this over and let's just think about this. Like, where do we begin if we're going to either newly evaluate or reevaluate an HVAC program?
Sure. So, you want to do what we call the initial due diligence or market feasibility, and what that means is essentially you want to test the market, pressure test the market to ensure that uh, there's growth, that the financial
Mhm.
stability of that market, if you're catering to a local employment market, that market is growing, that there's construction going on. So, for example, here in sunny Florida, we're launching a new program here in Orlando, and one of the rationale or reason behind that is you have for instance Universal opening a brand new park. It's called Epic Universe, and they're putting millions and millions of dollars into this area, and there's opportunity there for additional trades. Obviously HVAC is one of them, and so we look at you want to look at market factors that will help you make the decision determination if a program is going to be viable there from a market standpoint, and as well as employment standpoint, which is very important.
Yeah, because if we build a program, it's kind of like the ball field. If build it and they will come, hopefully, but we have to make sure that it's actually going to be there. In the same conversation that Howard and I had with the DOE, we had a UA representative talking about some of the same kind of scenarios that they look at when they're doing training, because sometimes they have new facilities pop up in areas. One prime example was a new facility that was going in southern states here in the country, and it was not a very heavily populated area, but it had a very solid community in that vicinity. And so they knew they were going to be building a new facility that required HVAC and refrigeration technicians year round, quite a few of them. And it was a rural area that there wasn't going to be a lot of people moving to from other locations. So they had to go, okay, is this a candidate for a HVAC training program that fits the community? And so for them, a small program worked out very well. The community was able to work with a trade organization to build a program that would train the local community to stay in their community and work on this facility. And so that market feasibility is an ever changing landscape, because you could have an area that's heavily populated and had a lot of manufacturing a few decades ago that may have none now and is looking for new resources. So I'm sure that's an aspect when we're looking at an area is, what is growing, what was here before, and what can we help provide as a service going forward?
That's exactly it, Clifton. One scenario I remember, there was a market area we were researching, and we didn't really couldn't identify employers. And this was in HVAC. It was in CNC machining, another skill trade
Ah,
that I oversee. And we couldn't identify the type of employers wanting in that market. And so what we told the
right.
association that was representing, because it's also important you identify proper associations that support the industry. And we told the association of
Yes.
CNC, said, if you bring us the employees, we will build it. And the employers, rather, you bring us the employers, we will build it. And they showed up with over 100 employers. And at that moment, we realized, wow, that we can certainly employ our graduates, right? There's a market here. We just didn't see it. So the associations is also benefit and support avenue for a new program, they can open doors that you might not see are there.
I think that's extremely important when we're looking at our program because I think for too many decades we've relied on a steady supply of a few contractors, right? So if our program is functioning and we're placing students, but we're only placing them with one type of employment, it limits the scope of our program. So we talk a lot about installation, where so many of our vocational programs are focused heavily on the installation and not on service because the companies that they are working with tend to do lots of installation. And so for an industry, we're going to have a lot of new technology that's going to require new skill sets, especially for those that are heavily involved with IT. And our younger generations are much more comfortable with IT than like Ty, you and I. We have to kind of learn to grow with the changes in technology.
That's absolutely right. Some of my old stuff that I still have back here is antiques now. It's hard to say, but yeah, now things are changing. We have to learn how, those control boards and resistors and thermistors work and how to actually test a thermistor. Before we had some very basic controls. So understanding these electronics now are super important. And I believe personally, we don't know yet, but as inverters are going to be more and more commonplace and we need a control board, I can see that there's going to be cases that will be soldering in resistors or fuses or things like that
Repairing.
on these boards to get the customer running versus just replacing the whole board like we're typically used to.
I agree. I mean, look at the whole development of the computer industry. There are a lot of computer technicians, but there are a lot of computer repair people as well because you start developing that technology. But we are starting to see people coming out of that field looking at HVAC and refrigeration going, that is a very stable industry and it pays extremely well. I think I'm interested in that and I'm going to bring my IT skills to this. So, as a program, now we have the opportunity to start thinking outside of our traditional program design and going, well, what can I provide to this market? What can I provide to this community that they may not currently have? So, a needs assessment is a very important thing to look at when we're designing our program. All right, I think I can stay on this slide all day. All right, let's talk about partnerships, alliances, and that inaugural PAC meeting. Let's dive a little bit deeper into that because I know we've all probably got some different aspects that we can chime in on this one.
So I've coined this inaugural PAC meeting name in the industry, and it's funny because it's circulated, and everybody now refers to it, at least in our little niche industry,
Mhm.
the inaugural PAC meeting. And what I mean by that is, um, a typical PAC meeting, professional advisory council, will give you feedback on placements, right? But
Yep.
and which is critical for accreditation purposes, right? So they'll give you feedback on the placements of your students. Are they doing well? Can they, turn a screwdriver? Can they use a meter? And you get very critical feedback at that point. But the inaugural, you won't get the outcome information, right? And so you'll get just the initial that initial introduction. So the inaugural for me is really a networking event for the
Mm,
contractors to get to know the school, to get to know the program, to get to know the curriculum that you're proposing. And so, what I like to do is before we submit programs to the accrediting body or the state, whoever's going to approve the program, I like to have the contractors review the proposed curriculum and
oh,
get their feedback. And I think it's important because, for example, one deciding factor that changes all the time is whether or not we teach sheet metal versus ductboard,
absolutely.
right? And so it depends on the region. And
Yeah,
so,
depends on
but
your
it's always a
codes.
question I push back onto the contractors, like, well, what are you guys doing? I found like places in Texas, Austin apparently is a ductboard driven area,
Mm,
but apparently Dallas in our PAC meeting, like sheet metal, still the same state, you know.
wow.
So very interesting, feedback that we get. But I think the point is that is the feedback you want to tailor the curriculum to the area that you're going to service, and meaning the type of students you're placing into that area. So you want to tailor that curriculum to service the local market.
I was on a virtual PAC meeting probably a month ago in my local area for a local community college. And in that conversation, there was a contractor that was very involved with the curriculum, very involved with giving input on what was changing. They were aware that there was new types of equipment, new refrigerants, so they were asking for the curriculum to be updated to include that. And then they asked if they could come take a look at the program sometime. And the school said, "Yeah, you've never been here?" And said, "No, I've been giving input for 2 years, but I've never actually seen the facility. I'd love to come check it out sometime." And then immediately I started thinking about that importance that you're saying, making that connection, getting those contractors, getting those distributors and equipment manufacturers in the actual facility ahead of time to understand what they're actually seeing. So they'll have an idea what that potential outcome can be. Without knowing, you're just asking for things and hoping that it's going to be accomplished.
That's exactly it. 100%. And you also during that inaugural PAC meeting, you want to get into the wholesale partners. I think the wholesale partners is such a key partner in any
Absolutely.
HVAC program. One, because they're helping you with discounts on consumables and capex. When you're needing to replace new furnaces and condensers in the program, you're getting special pricing, in some cases donations,
Mhm.
right? And so, and I think those are critical. And you'd be surprised how many programs I've evaluated as a consultant, just to help them grow. That they don't have relationships with local wholesalers, and so that's I think that's a huge opportunity. And you also want to be able to I'm a big proponent of offering students toolkits, giving
Mhm.
them a good starter set, a good quality set that will last them a long time. So I think that makes and breaks programs when you're able to offer students good solid starting toolkit. Have partnership with wholesalers. I used to partner with the local Johnstone. They got to know me early on in my career in New Jersey, because I used to show up and I used to ask them to give me their banners off the wall all the time. And the owners, they were at that time, they started off really early on, and they used to work the counter. So really great team there, and they had no problem. They would give me the banners off of their walls. And so I think it's really important, that you partner with the wholesalers for sure.
Yeah, I was actually a technical trainer for a local Johnstone supply for about 4.5 years. And I personally had a hard time getting rid of equipment. I had a hard time finding enough schools to take my scratch and dent equipment at the end of the year. And so there's a lot of schools that don't realize the availability of parts, warranty parts that get thrown away that, yeah, they're bad, but they're parts. Equipment that is scratch and dent that is a good write off for the actual distributor. And so I had one technical school, is actually a high school program, and at least once a year, I'd give them a call and go, "Hey, bring a truck and a trailer." And they would haul off a couple tons of brand new equipment. And I had other schools that I would make the offer to, and maybe they couldn't get their request for it, because there's administrations that struggle with those free items. And so I would just simply sell them for $1. And so there's ways that you can work with your local distributors, and the local distributors will be happy to work with you and help prepare you. Because remember, we're all in the business of selling, really, when it comes down to it. Our heart and our passion is in doing things properly, but inevitably we're giving back to a community. We're trying to prepare people for working in our industry. And so for a distributor, if they can work with a local technical training facility to help prepare students for their own contractors to recognize brands that they sell, then they're going to be very interested in working with your school. So incredibly important partnerships to have.
100%. I could convince a Johnstone Supply and the same that those same folks in New Jersey to give us at that time they used to give out the big catalogs. Remember the huge thick
Mhm.
catalogs?
I do.
Now it's all
Yeah.
digital, but they used to give them. We used to get a pallet or two to the school, just to give away to students, and they were happy to give every student one catalog because they knew that was a future customer. So they saw the investment opportunity there for them. Um, Lastly on there, the UA, and so that's a huge opportunity there that I also see a lot of schools that don't take advantage of, and such an easy one to do so. You just show up to the local UA chapter there and introduce yourself, and in a lot of cases they'll be happy to do articulation agreements with you as long as the curriculum meets certain guides. But obviously when you're accredited by HVAC Excellence, you automatically get that bonus feature. But I've seen schools also get articulation agreements outside of that, which is also a plus.
Sure.
So there's other avenues to take advantage of that. And so I think that local UA chapters are certainly a big deal to include in your development of a new program.
Yeah, and to have the open conversations about those opportunities, because there are educators that don't understand the consequences of encouraging students to leave a program to join, like an apprenticeship, and keeping those open conversations about the actual educational flow, where you can get all those fundamentals through your program. The program can place students. If I'm placing with a contractor, I'm placing them in a UA apprenticeship. It's the same type of placement. I'm getting them into a role that is preparing them for their future. And especially those students that have an interest in the more advanced pieces of equipment. They are very intrigued with IT and the way information flows. It helps prepare them for those next stages, because there's a lot of students that leave a vocational program not knowing what those next steps are. They assume that they leave a program and they go to work for a contractor, and that contractor is going to get them anywhere they want to go in their future. And that's not always the case. So making those connections of where those avenues are, even other than just the contractor, is extremely important. And a lot of people still join in, a lot of great comments. And Stephen, yeah, you're right. One of the things we have to look at going forward is CO2 systems, not just in our commercial industrial applications, but Ty and I had Zenobia Aguilera on just a few months ago talking about CO2 heat pump water heaters for residential applications. We're going to start seeing low GWP alternative refrigerants, natural refrigerants being used in a lot of applications. So understanding what that demand is, not just right now, but in the future. That's where these partnerships and these alliances, and actually working with your local community and your manufacturers and your distributors, and thinking outside of your traditional supply of students, and realizing that there is a massive demand for educated students going into the workforce in a variety of different applications. Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
getting my soapbox there.
I think it's really important that we make sure that the placement team is working with the instructors to identify the strengths of those students. Before, we've seen them where everybody was isolated in the schools, and what you'll have with that problem is whoever's doing placement, they don't understand the trades, and they just think that everybody has the same skill set, and they just send people anywhere they want to go. And you
Right.
get somebody who really is good technically with their hands, and they're really good at figuring problems out, and they'll end up with a company that's a sales company, and they don't do well. So the
Yeah.
company doesn't succeed.
That's
The
all they
student
see.
was in just long enough, the placement got their check marks, and then you end up with somebody who's really good at talking in sales, and they end up in a technical position, and then you're setting both sides up for failure. So making sure that whoever it is working with that placement team can really understand the different levels of these jobs, the difference between a CO2 rack system and like an install system, residential install or commercial install, or duct systems, or even delivering parts, how all these jobs are different, making sure we find those really big qualities of that student. You can put them with what that employer specifically needs. And that also goes back to not teaching just one thing, to being,
More
teaching a
diverse.
little wider window, wider net.
Yeah, Stephen, you made a really good comment. We're here to hold each other accountable as well. So we are a family here. I am actually I'm going to have a challenge for you, my friend. I am going to challenge you to reach out to a couple of your local vocational technical programs and ask them if they're looking for input from a local contractor that's looking for technicians and programmers. And if you need any resources on finding any of those schools, just reach out to me at cbeck@escogroup.org, and I will get you connected to some of your local schools, because that's how we're going to make this industry change. We are all going to become more involved with this. And yeah, William, thanks for joining us. Glad to have you here. Sorry, guys. It's a lot of fun. All right, I'll move on. Okay, now let's really dive into it, Lou. Let's get into curriculum and let's get into credentialing and understanding how those work hand in hand in a program.
Yes. So curriculum, very important topic. It's one of the the most the foundation really of your whole core program. And so what you want to make sure that you have quality curriculum that's constantly being updated. And so one of the consistent issues I see with some schools is that they'll implement a curriculum, but then they don't update it and they don't stay up to date with the latest trends and technologies that are taking place. And then that's when you start seeing people using, still having like R22,
Yeah.
it's important, but, this is still out there, right? But, they don't do the upgrades. And then administration doesn't really understand that the industry is changing and that, for example, A12s are critical. And now you have to make an investment in new equipment and certain tools. And so that's where it becomes, critical for a successful program is to ensure they have quality curriculum and that it's constantly being updated. So I'm a big fan of turnkey curriculum. And what I mean by that is just curriculum that's fully built out, very little, development from a teacher's standpoint. I don't need to build lesson plans. Lesson plans are already done. PowerPoint's already done, exams already completed. And then if the publisher's in charge of doing the update, then that's super, right? Because that's just one less thing I need to worry about. But that's just absolutely, the curriculum development is certainly a critical element. You want to give yourself at least 6 months if you're doing it from scratch to have a good runway for having a complete full curriculum.
Yeah, people don't realize how much work it takes to build a complete curriculum. Take an example, Jason Objute's low GWP program that we have here at ESCO. We get calls often. I got one yesterday from a UA local asking, "Hey, I think I need to build a low GWP curriculum for my class, and there is a lot of research that I need to do. Where do I start? Because I know that I'm going to have to invest probably a semester in putting this together." And I said, "Oh, are you looking for like a book to talk about it?" And he said, "Yeah, boy, that'd be great." I said, "Are you looking for PowerPoint presentations to be able to instruct you through the entire classroom with instructor notes?" He's like, "Man, now we're cooking." I said, "What about assessments and certifications that go along with that, an e-learning course?" And he's like, "I'd be dreaming." And I'm like, "We'll take care of you because we understand that need. That's why we're all here. We're educators trying to help you as an educator be successful. We're all here as a community to help you grow." And you're right. If you can invest more time with your students and less time building your curriculum, I mean, that's where I want to be. I mean, Ty, would you rather sit in paper and pen all day, or would you rather go tear some stuff apart and show people how to evacuate 55-gallon drums and the importance of it?
I have written out a lot of curriculum, and I've even written out the steps for other instructors to be able to follow and do experiments. But in writing out curriculum, it takes a lot of mental power to do that. You're having to think about possible questions, time constraints, how much time is it going to take to do this, all the stuff you have to cover, and then writing it to where somebody can interpret that. So writing curriculum is one thing that I'm like proud that I was able to do because I have a lot of learning disabilities that make that challenging. So it's like great that I was able to do that, but it is something that I did not enjoy doing. I'd much rather somebody else write it and I just give them information. Hey, let's add this, let's change that. And that is way more fun than actually sitting and doing all of that typing and trying to keep your eyes open and the numbers doing this. It is definitely a whole nother world.
Absolutely. And if you need assistance with that, just hop on our website, escogroup.org, or give us a call at the office. I mean, even all of our office staff are here to help you be successful. I mean, everyone in this organization is invested their careers in making you successful. We're giving back. Lou is giving back to his industry in big ways because Lou probably had some of these same struggles when he was getting into the industry. Am I right?
Oh, 100%. You definitely have to, you have the growing pains, right? And the scars as you go along and mistakes that you've made in curriculum development. So no, I agree. I applaud ESCO for it's support for the industry and the instructors. And it's one thing to know, be a technician and know how to troubleshoot. It's another thing to take your skills and teach. And also organizations like ESCO, help that bridge that gap and helping people be from technician to instructor. It's a big crossover. So a lot of support.
Absolutely, it is. Oh, and Katie, glad you joined us. We actually just talked about you on a DOE meeting today. We were talking about when do you introduce this into the programs? When do you start talking to students about the trades? And Katie actually has a from tutus to tool belts program to bring in like eighth grade girls to look at the industry. So it all goes back to understanding your market, your industry. What kind of jobs can you provide to the community around you, and being open to new ideas. It's a changing world and a changing industry. And so these additional resources are really important to understand. So curriculum is just one of these pieces.
Yes. Once you get a solid curriculum that it's going to be updated, and you have the latest and greatest and in there, and you're maintaining that curriculum timeline, you can move on to credentials. And I think credentials is also an area that's needs to give equal importance. What type of credentials are going to offer in the industry. And so I say you look at, there's so many credentials you can offer, right, that you can include into a curriculum, other than throwing the whole kitchen sink at it and just offering everything. But I think that, strategically for a program, it's important to, again, look at the market that you're servicing, and based on the market, target those credentials. And embed them into your curriculum. That's why it's important that you have that inaugural PAC meeting, because this meeting is taking place before you submit to your accreditation body. And so you can make changes to the curriculum based on feedback you're getting from that local market. Right. And so you really cater the curriculum to what the industry is asking for in your area.
Yeah, prime example. So subsection H of the AIM Act is still in progress. We don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know if we're going to be required to have a low GWP certification separate from our 608, but we have a lot of distributors that are requiring their contractors to go through low GWP safety training and have a certification as a liability insurance release before they will sell them A2L equipment. And so you may have an area that is not looking at A2L training and certifications at all, but you may have a distributor, you may have a market in your back door that is requiring the contractors to have that. So if you can provide a student coming out of the program that is 608 as well as a low GWP certification, a contractor is going to relook at the school going, wow, you're preparing these students more than we've been initiating it locally. So you're right. We have to be able to see what the market is looking for in means of certifications as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in the EPA, that one you have to, that's a no-brainer, right? The universal EPA, every program needs to offer that, regardless of where you're located.
Absolutely, you do. All right. So we've worked with our local community. We've started getting our curriculum together. We've got contractors and distributors and hopefully manufacturer down the street on board. And we've got an idea what we need to do for our community. We've reevaluated our program and went, okay, we're going to start going a slightly different direction. We're going to start teaching on inverter technology, even though I'm a little scared of it, a little uncomfortable with it, but I'm going to go to the National HVACR Education Conference and I'm going to learn about it. And I'm going to be meeting with the manufacturers and I'm going to get well trained and I'm going to implement it in my program. So what equipment is using that?
Good point. So it depends on, again, if you're a single school in a local area, I would team up with the local supply house, and they'll carry the brand that the local contractors are using. And so, if you're servicing that area, you want to train to some degree on the equipment that you're going to see prevalent in that market. For example, in my situation with UTI, we're launching programs throughout the United States, in different states, and almost simultaneously in some cases. And so I need to be able to have consistency when I'm launching multiple programs across different states. And so I team up with Johnstone because a Johnstone part number is a Johnstone part number across the US. And so I know that I can deal with consistency and get consistent equipment into these programs and have a very cookie cutter approach. But with UTI, that's just a desire because we want our programs to be the same curriculum, same equipment. And so as far as which brand to go with, it's really I say it's based off the local market you're servicing. In some cases, Carrier is a dominant brand, and in other cases, Daikin's going to be the dominant brand. And so, but you're going to get that information during the inaugural PAC meeting. That's how important PAC meetings are. Especially if you do it initially during that right before you submit curriculum, you'll get tons of information, and you'll be able to really tailor this curriculum for that market.
Yeah, because even if we're looking, say we're going to pick a brand, right? Say we've called 5 contractors in our area, and 5 contractors all say, "Oh, this is the brand that we're working with the most right now." Well, that brand might have a wide range of new products, and so it's important to understand what model. Because I know here in my area, I have some contractors that focus on very specific models of equipment that they're going to be installing because it works well on their card lineup. And so if I can work with my contractors and go, hey, by the way, we're going to be preparing these students for you. What products or product do you primarily focus on so I can help prepare them to be even more specific on this training? And I think that's an important step to make because the 3 of us, when we were learning how to work on equipment, the brand really didn't matter too much. A gas valve, single stage or 2-stage, looked pretty much the same. Might physically look different, but it was operating and wiring pretty much the same. That PSC blower motor didn't matter who manufactured that thing. That heat exchanger really didn't look a whole lot different. Some were built better than others, but they all look pretty similar, right? When we looked at cabinets, there wasn't as many differences as there are today. And so it's incredibly important to understand what the specific products, because I could say, I'm going to introduce inverters into my classroom. So I'm going to actually teach mini splits just to find out that no one in your area installs mini splits. They install a lot of horizontal discharge inverters on air handlers, but they don't do mini splits. Or I could be teaching on gas furnaces, not realizing that they've actually been banning gas furnaces in my area, and they're not going to be installing any in new construction where I might be placing students. And so I've got to stay aware of what's changing in the industry. And so in doing that, it's about making these connections, making these partnerships. We truly encourage you to join us at the National HVACR Education Conference. That's where all the trade organizations, all the different manufacturers, they all join to be able to share this information to help keep your program up to date. So another fantastic topic. A lot of people out there still with questions and chats. Well, that is so true. That is so true. But we can teach them how to work on all of them. All right, so we got an idea. Our variety of input for our PAC meeting has concluded that we're going to be teaching a curriculum. We're going to be teaching a particular style of equipment, maybe a particular manufacturer, I'm not sure. Now we have to start talking about how we're actually going to establish our lab so that it flows with our curriculum and is a functional facility. There's a lot to this one. I've seen a lot of different facilities, and I've seen a lot of different designs.
100%, Cliff. This is definitely an area where it can take months and months from a standpoint of developing your lab, and you want to make sure that you have a good, like you call it, a good flow through the lab, and you want to think about, when you're running X class at this time, is that going to interfere with another class accessing the same lab, right? So a lot of thought needs to go into it. I like to create, depending on the space, you'll have some classroom designs that they'll have a lab within the classroom. We call them collabs. And then you have other classrooms designs that you have just one big open labs. I prefer the open lab and the classroom lab, both. So But I think, like for example, the picture you have here, this is a collab environment for what we're using
Mhm.
it for, and then you'll have your split systems in here, and then towards the front, which you don't see, is a classroom in there. And so I think that depending on the space you're dealing with, obviously your administration is going to give you how much square footage you're going to work with. If you can do an open lab and then have classrooms separate, I think that's usually the best design for an HVAC program. But only because when you have the classroom within the lab, from a noise standpoint, if you're trying to lecture and you have another classroom in the same space, that could become a problem, right? From a just noise level. So I always say open just one single dedicated lab, and couple and a separate classroom for lecture purposes is probably the best design when it comes to an HVAC kind of layout for learning.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And especially if we start blending our class with our equipment, then sometimes we can get into, safety restraints for, making sure that we have adequate safety measures for people to get in and out. So proper egress. And so there's a lot into the design of it. I myself like having separate classrooms, but I also like to be able to have a wide enough space that if we have a piece of equipment they're going to be learning about, that we could bring in some temporary tables to sit down and look through some installation manuals and wiring diagrams, to be able to turn and physically look at the pieces of equipment, not work on them, but actually visually see where they are and then be able to remove those pieces for education later. I tend to do that as well. But you're right. There's no perfect design, but we wanted to just share with you some different styles of layouts, just so you can get a feel of different aspects of looking at equipment.
Yeah, and so this is one example of our Long Beach boiler setup. We have a tankless boiler and a standard 80%. And with the design, it continues to evolve, but this is just kind of a starting point for us for just introducing students to your standard boiler operation and procedures.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great point. That collab setup is, it's a way to introduce people into the equipment while you're doing the training as well. And
Yeah.
in my heart, refrigeration, even if you're not preparing students for a refrigeration career, I think it's one of the most important things to have in a classroom, because if you can teach the refrigeration cycle and show that that cycle that we are working on just changes its physical characteristics, and that this piece of equipment is going to be the fundamental for everything they ever work on going forward, that is a vapor compression system, it sometimes changes their perspective. I've walked into many labs that are only furnaces, air handlers, and air conditioners, and go, this is great. I mean, we're teaching some of those skills, but without having a refrigeration system, are we actually teaching them what's happening? And this is a fantastic simplified layout. Kudos. That's a good setup.
I agree, Cliff. This is also one of my favorite classes to teach, and it's the most fun class. I mean, they're learning the cycle at this point, and this particular setup is such a popular setup across many different schools and programs because you can do so many labs. I mean,
Mm,
I could count, I think, 40 different labs you can do on this, from electrical to mechanical type labs, and
absolutely.
pumping down to changing TVs. I mean, you can just go
Pressure
nuts, and
setting.
it's so
Yeah.
absolutely, it's just such a great piece of a training aid to use for teaching HVAC for sure.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, Stephen. When you start seeing refrigeration as just refrigeration, and we do different things with refrigeration, it changes the whole concept. And when we can bring those principles to life and go, okay, now that you're comfortable working on refrigeration, let's send you out into the field and go find different types of refrigeration for you to work on. I mean, that's kind of how I found my little niche in the industry. Is I was taught refrigeration right out of the bat, and then I learned air conditioning afterwards, and then my first opportunity to do refrigeration, I got sent on the oddball jobs that nobody wanted. And because I had those, it was a lot of fun, Ty. Some of this stuff I got to encounter was very enjoyable. But it was because I understood refrigeration. And so, Stephen, that's exactly it. If you can get that principle down of refrigeration, everything else is just changes of metal and plastic in some form or another, or media that we're moving.
I do think even if none of an entire class doesn't do refrigeration, teaching it is essential because now they can really see that the temperatures and the pressures are changing. Because if all you have is air conditioning equipment and then you're teaching superheat and subcooling, but they're just seeing a needle, oh, well, the needle's always here. I can just go by that. It just leads them down that dark path of these bad habits that cause problems that they can't see that are still there. So by doing refrigeration, they can see what's happening in the temperature change, how it's affecting the saturated temperatures. And especially when you have the pump down cycle, they can see what's happening on the pump down cycle. They can see that pressure switch closing. They can see then how that's reacting to the contactor. Having some of those low ambient controls, they can see what's happening, how we can bypass that, especially with a liquid receiver. If you have a really powerful heat gun, heating that up with an infrared camera, now they can see that oil level that's in there, that refrigerant level that's in there. Now you can kind of transfer that, hey, in subcooling, what's happening in the condenser. It helps them really understand the importance of that bigger picture in the cycle, because we all get bad habits. At some point in life, we all have some bad habits. And if we can keep the students out of those bad habits from the beginning, we just set them up for success down the road. Even things such as the spacing. It's one of the things I love leading people into. Why is the evaporator, the thin space so differently? And that leads into a whole nother conversation. But now it's their curiosity. Well, why is this different? And they're asking you to teach them. And that changes the whole dynamic of the class.
So I used to do a industrial apprenticeship program. So I would go into industrial facilities that had maintenance technicians that may have had some experience with electrical and had never really touched the gas-fired appliances and never touched refrigeration. And I would walk in with a little tabletop refrigeration unit and I would set it down. I was like, okay, when you learn this, you'll be able to go out and work on all that. And they'd go, on that little thing, if I learned that, I can go out and work on a 100-ton chiller. I'm like, yes, you can. It's going to look different, but when you get good at this, everything else you're ever going to touch is actually going to be a different version of this. And that was one of my favorite trainers, that little refrigeration trainer, just like the one you just had. Yeah,
It's a
you're
pretty
right.
cool trainer.
Rick, this just following the heat. So yeah,
If I could
great
get the
stuff.
line set to be out of glass, I would, but that's a little bit more of engineering to.
I know. North Park's got some pretty cool stuff. I have to say, I haven't seen an evaporator and condenser yet, but the day's coming. We get low enough pressure, we're going to make one, Ty. All right, so a couple more. Let's. If anyone has any questions along the way, let us know, and definitely continue letting us know where you're joining in from. Garrett, hey, what's going on, my friend? Just down the road in Bloomington, Indiana, at Ivy Tech. All right, so now we're getting serious about our program. And let's start thinking about sustainability and long-term establishment. Like let's think about the future for the program, not just for our students, but for our program.
Yeah. So at this point, right, your program's established. The community knows who you are. You have a great pack meeting. You're getting feedback. And so, how do you maintain and sustainability, long term success for this program? And so you do that by listening. It's
Mm,
that simple, right? You listen to the pack meeting. You listen to your members and the feedback that they're giving you. And there's many times I've seen programs where the members, the people who employ the graduates, are giving critical feedback, and I'll review pack meeting minutes for a school, and I'll go back 3 or 5 years when I'm consulting or working as an accreditation specialist, and so I'll help the school, and you'll see the minutes 5 years and they're still talking about multimeter. The students need to be stronger in multimeter. They don't know Ohm's law. They don't know how to figure it out. And so, you got to read those minutes and take action. And, what are we not doing in the curriculum that we consistently have the same outcome with our students not knowing how to use a multimeter? So I think that's critical, is to listen to the pack members and ensure that when you're doing your minutes, your follow-up on the minutes, because everybody should do follow-ups, that you have solutions on there that here's what we did to improve students lack of multimeter the ability, and so on and so forth. So I think that's important. And then the next one there is just buy-in.
mm,
These two are synonymous. Buying from the local contractors, you're going to get that by putting out quality trained students, quality graduates that can use a multimeter. And so, once you build that type of reputation where that you do listen to the local employers, you are taking steps, solution-based steps that help these employers with the issues they're having with your graduates. That certainly establishes a long-term recognition. And then how do you continue to build upon that? That you want to go ahead and seek accreditation and get valid recognition from a third party source like HVAC Excellence that is going to give validation to your program's efforts, and that they meet a certain standard. So I think these are kind of like the three the areas that I would focus on for sustainability and long term establishment.
One of the
That's so true.
questions. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I've seen so many times where a school will spend all the money getting a program started, building out the lab, getting everything set up, and then they don't ever look at it again. And I've been to so many PAC meetings where the administration was in charge of it, or even the place was in charge of it, and it was just something they had to do, and they didn't ever look or listen to what the people were saying. And anytime a contractor would get mad that they were having the same problems, that nobody was listening, they'd be like, "Well, we just won't invite them back. How dare them be complaining? They got a free lunch." And I was like, "You guys are missing the
Missing the
entire
entire point.
purpose of this. Like,
Yeah.
you should just shut it down then at that point, because you're not wanting to grow. You have your blinders on. It's like we're in a spiral." And the schools usually spiraled pretty quickly after that. And they said, "Well, we're still placing people." Well, yeah, but you're placing them at the lowest possible positions, and there's just such a big need. You're not helping anymore the community. So those PAC meetings are so important for the contractor side and also for the school side. I've talked to so many contractors said, "I'm not going to any more PAC meetings," because all they do is they talk and they ask us specific questions, wanting to hear specific things, and they never want
Mm.
true input. And it's really, really disappointing. And that really frustrates me when I see that. So PAC meetings are essential. Get in there, get the instructors in there, and have the instructors be quiet. Don't let them defend themselves. When a student, when they're hearing the same thing about a meter, whatever it is, don't let the instructors try to defend themselves, because that's your natural reaction. And here, this is an issue coming from the employers. Now we know what you're doing. What can we now do to fix that?
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's another point that came through. And a lot of instructors may not know. And so we have quite a few podcasts that we've done. We've done some shows on different ways to improve your PAC meeting. And so I think we're going to dive deeper into that one. That's a fantastic topic that we'll just continue to talk about. And we're actually going to, in October, I'm going to be at an equipment manufacturer. Ty and I is going to be at an equipment manufacturer. And we're going to be doing a video and an episode of the show talking about what an equipment manufacturer would like to ask during the PAC meeting and how distributors and contractors can be more involved with their local schools. So we're going to continue these conversations going forward. One question that did come in that I really don't have enough experience to answer, and I don't know if this is something we can dive into or it's a different conversation. Rick asked, can we discuss admissions buy-in at all? I said, not a lot of experience on my side from that one.
Missions, you got to love them. You need them.
Mhm.
They bring in prospective students into the program. I think admissions. There's something that we call product knowledge. And instructors need to offer product knowledge consistently to admissions. I suggest that you offer 4 times a year. Every quarter you have a
Mm.
refresher course. You give an exam if you can, to admissions folks, and they should get an 80, on that exam, to be able to sell HVAC and sell it
Yeah.
properly, because you don't want people saying once you graduate from HVAC you can be a licensed electrician, right? And admissions, they can go different routes. So
Mm.
I say 4 times a year. Do product knowledge, offer some kind of certification that they get, and that way they're well rounded on what to say in HVAC.
Yeah, absolutely. That might be an entire conversation for us to have down the road, Ty. With enough questions coming in like that, I can see
I
us
have a lot of
make.
input on that one, but it's a whole nother show.
Okay. All right. Katie asked a question. Yes, Katie. So when we are talking about these terms, you'll hear them in different names depending on, what has been a custom in that area. So when we say PAC meeting, we're talking about a program advisory committee. You'll hear a variety of different terms, but we're talking about, yeah, your advisory meeting.
Great question. I
Absolutely.
forget sometimes we use these words all the time, and
Yeah.
I forget. I remember the first time I was teaching, they kept talking about this pack, and I had no clue what it was, and I didn't wanna ask anybody, so that is a legitimately great question.
Yeah, even when I started here, because remember I came from the distributor side. I didn't spend any time in educational in the vocational classroom. So when we first started talking about pack meetings, I'm hearing PACK, and I'm like, what kind of what are we packing? And I didn't know what the conversation. It's a Pac-Man meeting. All right. And so
An-
yeah,
Another
William.
name, another
Oh,
name there that they refer to it as professional advisory meeting,
ooh, absolutely.
advisory, a professional advisory committee. Yeah,
Yeah.
so just
Yeah,
multiple
all
names.
same terms. The things that we have to do throughout the year to make sure our program is continuing. And joining, did you know, the ESCO HVAC show? That will help you keep consistent. All right, one more. Actually, almost a couple of them. So you'd mentioned earlier about accreditation. And a lot of people don't realize that here at ESCO, we're a part of the ESCO group. Within ESCO Group, we have a few different organizations. One of them is HVAC Excellence that does the programmatic accreditation of schools. And so let's spend a little bit of time talking about what accreditation is and the benefits of doing that for a program.
Sure. I'm very intimately involved with accreditation on the UTI side, and that's certainly being that we have brand new HVAC programs, we have to graduate before we can apply. But that's certainly on our to-do list is to seek
Right.
a programmatic accreditation by HVAC Excellence. And so, but over the years, the benefits I've seen are amazing in regard to just recognition from the industry, from different type of contractors. A lot of these contractors recognize, for example, the program curriculum and they see the equipment, but they don't know if the instructor has quality. Is can the instructor teach, right? And so the accreditation, you have the CMHE, certified master HVAC educator that's tied to it, to one of the standards where you want your instructor to have either a CMHE or a degree or graduate from a trade school, and so I think that's one area that's certainly very beneficial to a program. The other area is that you have this interested third party
Hmm.
that's evaluating your program, and they're giving you this unbiased opinion on as far as where your program stands, compared to other programs throughout the nation. So, sometimes it's a reality check for some schools. For example, one common problem on accreditation is a lot of schools don't have mechanical venting, but it's a requirement.
Hmm.
You got to have mechanical venting for brazing, and so I've seen situations where some schools don't think about it, and in essence, what does the accreditation do? It gives you value. It gives you what I call street credit. Out there, allows your program to be recognized by this organization that upholds national standards, and so I think it's a huge value to get accredited.
Absolutely. I might be a little bit biased, but I think we do a fantastic job of trying to be at the forefront of helping schools. I mean, when you look at it, everything we do is here for the success of programs to provide students to the industry that we all love so much. So it's really about helping you be successful. And accreditation it's a self-evaluation. I always bring the analogy of if you've got 5 kids in a room and someone says, "Boy, there's the bad kid right there." 'Cause there's always one, right? Well, how do you know? What are you comparing that to? Are you comparing that one person to those 5? Or are you comparing that one to the 5 million that are out there? And so a lot of times we don't always see the things that, you know, could be evaluated a little bit differently. Fantastic. Good for you, Garrett. I've been working on mine for like a year. I'm on my way. On my way. Congratulations, Rick. So it really does. It brings that street accreditation. It brings that value of, okay, we've reevaluated this scenario and maybe we found some things that needed to be worked on, needed to be improved, and needed to be adjusted, needed to be updated. Maybe I had some technology that my local area is really not needing as much anymore, and I need to be focusing on some new things. Maybe my instructors, there was a point that came up a while ago earlier, is, how do you find qualified instructors for a program? Well, it comes back down to understanding what they have accomplished along the way. If I'm an instructor, say 5 of us walk into a school, say it's just the 3 of us, and the 3 of us walk into a school, and the school says, I'd like to hire one of you. Which one's qualified? And I go, well, I've been in industry for a long time, but I don't have a degree and I've got a subject matter educator. What does that mean? And then you may have someone who says, well, I've got a master's degree or bachelor's degree, or I've got 30 years of experience. You may have someone who has no experience. So it's a way of validating what you've learned along the way, because I could have 3 different people that are very well qualified, but may not have credentials that show that they've learned the things along the way. And so it's an opportunity to truly evaluate the things that you've retained. And I look at it as a way to find the things that I need to be better at. Because believe me, I'm finding things along the way that I've got to be better at. And it's not an easy journey. Both these guys can tell you, it's not an easy journey, but along the way, it does allow that self-evaluation over self. Just like we're talking about how accreditation evaluates the program, self-evaluation through testing and certifying is a great way to keep ourselves in check and to prove our value when we're looking for careers and training. So,
and the home run, just the home run here is that you get that articulation agreement with the UA, right? You get your graduates get 1 year advanced placement when you become HVAC Excellence accredited. And that alone is a recruitment feature when you're able to tell a new student, prospective student that. So it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Norman, I like the way you think, man. I threw my email into the chat. Grab that and get a hold of me, and I'll get one out to you. I think we got some at the office still.
I thought he was talking about me, the ESCO tie.
There's only one of those, my friend. You don't get any more of them. Oh, that's fantastic, guys. Such great conversations. We're right at the top of the hour. One other thing I wanted us to talk about a little bit before we do get out of here. Tell us a little bit about your programs and how people can connect to learn more about the UTI training programs.
Sure. So UTI is known as an automotive and diesel trade program, and they recently, about 2 years ago, went down the path of launching skilled trades. And so we offer HVAC, we offer electrical, we offer welding, all sorts of skilled trades, robotics and automation. And so if you want to get in touch with UTI, you know more about UTI, you feel free to go to our website, www.uti.edu. And you can find all the programs we offer there and learn more about UTI.
I always enjoyed working with the welders because they really know how to stick together.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
And they're electrifying group. Oh, we're so bad. All right. Well, if anyone has any questions, now's a great time to hop in there. Rick. All right. Rick worked with Lou. Seen that comment come in there earlier that Lou's had a lot of CMHEs. Says a lot about you, my friend. We are so grateful to have you here with us. It's been a wonderful topic, wonderful conversation. A lot of people still out there hanging in, going, hey, this is what we came here for, is to learn how to be better together.
Thank you for having me, Cliff. Thank you for having me, Ty. It was certainly a pleasure to be with you guys and love talking about this stuff. So happy to do it next time.
Sounds like a good one. Ty, any final parting words?
Just make sure that you care. Don't ever lose that. Don't ever let it just become a job or something you have to do. Always be caring about doing the best, learning the best that you can, and it's going to be challenging times, whether it's dealing with administration or admissions or the placement. There's going to be challenges, and even if you have all that perfect, you have challenges in the classroom. And if you have the perfect class, you get that one student that makes it a challenge. So make sure that you keep on that point. I've seen some really great instructors that just stopped caring, and that just makes all the difference. These are people's lives that we have in our hands, so got to remember that they're going through a lot too, and we want them to be successful, but we also think as long as we're caring about them, we're doing the right thing.
100%. I think there's a lot of servant hearts in the educational side of the industry. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. I look forward to future conversations on diving deeper into our classrooms, our curriculum, ways that we can continue growing together. And we'll see you next week on Did You Know? The ESCO HVAC Show. Bye, everyone.